6:30, we'll call Sawyer County Public Works Committee meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Ron Kinsley.
Here.
Mark Elway.
Here.
Ed Peters.
Here.
Dale Olson. Brian Bissonette. You have a quorum with three.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Number 3, certification of compliance with open meetings laws.
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 4, the agenda is set for us. Number 5, public comment. Anybody who wish to address the committee? Ms. Zilmer.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, and I have a general comment on items that are not on the agenda and would also like to be recognized later for the items I've specified on my form. At different committee meetings and at the county board meetings, there has been some interesting discussion in attempts to better define the overlap of jurisdiction and authority between committees on certain matters. And also at the last county board meeting, there was also some discussion about county board members being able to be fully informed by the time county board comes to act on things, assuming most of the work has been done at the committee level. And so in the spirit of those discussions, I would like to see the different committees get better understanding of where those overlaps in authority are so that things get covered. And one example that I wanted to bring up tonight was having watched what happened with the hangar leases for the airport. I watched via Zoom when those lease documents were gone over. The county administrator recommended, I think, an increase from 10 cents per square foot to 20 cents per square foot. And I don't know who ultimately is responsible for the budget of the airport overall, not just the operations by the manager, but possibly that is something that should have gone to finance, because this committee then decided, after hearing from some of the, hangar folks, that maybe 15 cents an hour or per square foot was better. So, but yet when that matter came to the full county board, there was no context given. Here's the form, and yes, we're going to adopt the format of the lease. Well, I really think that there was a budgetary concern there. If the airport is not fully supporting itself, that cost is going to the general tax levy. And something like that needs to be better discussed and take recommendations. I went back and I did the inflation factor. I would have said 20 cents per square foot was a good number. And yet it was not just the lease form that was recommended. The whole issue of the rental amount was overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who wish to address the committee? Anybody out there? Number 6, consideration approval of the minutes from the previous meeting of June 9th.
Make a motion approved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Peters to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7, Sawyer County Airport report. Letter A, Hayward Aviation. Mr. Leslie.
Well, good evening, folks. Any questions on the report that I put together? I'm gonna add a couple things afterwards, like I always do. Come on now, Hal.
Mr. Peters, you got a question?
No.
Yeah, the report, there's, a couple interesting things in there. We had an airplane incident over at the airport last 3 weeks ago. That was pretty significant. That's about as bad as we've had. That's been a kind of a learning process for me and some of the other folks at the airport as well. I was talking with Ms. Sanchez today about trying to come up with a plan that suits our airport. That's a little bit, I guess my concern isn't so much, when I'm there, it's when I'm not there. There's a lot of coordinating that has to happen all very quickly with different government agencies that have to do with aviation. And if I'm not the person there and I'm somewhere else, I don't have anybody else, queued up to be able to step into my place to do those things. And that may be, even if it's in the middle of the night, it might be somebody from the sheriff's department or something among those lines of firefighters. So I think working on putting a plan together. Other airports have, but honestly, not a lot of small airports like ours. You know, Eau Claire, Rhinelander, the big commercial airports, you know, they have to have, that's one of the reasons why they're commercial airports, they have to have fire departments on site to be a commercial airport, which really kind of sets the difference between the category of airports. But certainly is a learning opportunity, and that's how I'm trying to take it. It was no fault of us or the county that the incident happened, but that's another thing that we get to consider from time to time as well, how we do everything out there with snow removal and equipment near the runway and those types of things. So,
Can you tell us what happened?
inexperienced pilot error. That was pretty evident from the get-go. Most of the incidences are.
Just overshot.
Yeah, it was bad crosswind, a really bad crosswind. We don't have a crosswind runway, and most airports have them for that reason, because airplanes can't land in heavy crosswinds. Certain aircraft makes and models have limitations, and well, that fellow was
Should have went around, or what would have been the best thing for
The
him?
best thing to do for him probably would have been to have gone to another airport, not tried to make the landing.
Thank you.
I know I've got to get together with Lynn. I met with Tom Hoff, Lynn and Rebecca a couple weeks ago, trying to figure out some hangar leases. We've got a couple that are coming due. We've got some lingering issues with hangar leases, period, that we need to kind of snuff out. I don't foresee having major issues with them. The problem is that the way things were done at previous committees, especially the airport property committee, things were done at committee level and approved, and there's meeting minutes approving things like hangar sales, you know, a sale of hangar going from one individual to another. One happens to be in the room here tonight, and that was the case. And then Chris Mayberry signed it, but there was never an actual document that was formed and, you know, done the way that we would do it now. So getting together with Lynn, trying to get some of those documents still sorted out as to transfer of lease, you know, between the original hangar owner and the second or third, you know, so some of those different types of things are kind of ongoing. I suppose as long as you folks don't get emails about it, about people being upset, we're still at least trying to do our jobs. And then we still haven't talked about the 2022 budget for the airport yet. I know I have approached Mr. Hoff with some requests and some different things, and I know that there's seemingly an effort to try to reduce costs at the airport, you know, in a lot of different capacities, but there's other things that, you know, there's costs that, you know, the county should incur with having the airport. And the idea, I've said it before, again, the idea that, you know, the airport should sustain itself, while that sounds great, not many small airports do, and the economic impact of having the airports in the community are pretty significant. So just something to keep in mind.
Mr. Howard, go ahead.
I think most people on the current committee understand that the airport is, it'd be very hard at this time. We've done just about everything we could to make it so sustainable, but so that contract or the land transfer, that is still legal, even though it wasn't done according to the way we do it now.
Well, that's not a question for me, that's more for Mr. Hoff and Rebecca, but yeah, you know, as a hangar owner, if I was selling a hangar myself and knowing what we've gone through at this level with the county, with hangar leases in the past, I'd definitely be concerned if I didn't have a piece of parchment that was rubber stamped that had full county board approval on it, like we would do for the Hayward Aviation hangar that we just bought, you know, in December. So whether things were approved at committee statutorily, you talk to Rebecca, she likes to say that. There's a way things should be done and the way that they weren't done, and we're still working on some of those things. And I need to get together with Lynn, and we need to compare some notes.
We'll learn as we go.
Well, a lot of things we've done differently in the past, and I know I like to say we're not doing things like we used to, but we have to go with what's there. So.
Otherwise, I don't know, airport's been busy, I could tell you folks that, it always is in July. Different things seemingly happen every day. We have the US Army was in and out today. We got, tomorrow we got our UH-60 Blackhawk coming in. You know, they're coming in for different reasons, and the airport does more than just support the hangar owners and the rich and famous that fly in and out. You know, I mean, there's a lot of activities that happen out there that, you know, go unseen and that people from the community don't realize. So I'll put a plug in there for ourselves about the airport and gotta stay on it.
Okay. Let's go on to the Bureau of Aeronautics. Runway Rehab, please.
I wish that I could have just copied and pasted the email from Matt Messina, our engineer from the state of Wisconsin, because he did a pretty good job just spelling it out, but it's really not appropriate to plagiarize and copy and paste email chains. But basically, the state has, you know, made a commitment to us that for 2024, for 2023 apportionment discretionary funding that, you know, for our runway, we're gonna get it. I mean, they're planning for it. Runways take 3 years to put together from an engineering standpoint. So this is happening. We've already, this board, the full county board of supervisors has motioned and approved the airport improvement plan. Part of that airport improvement plan was the rehabilitation of the main runway at the airport. We haven't talked about budget. We haven't talked about how we're going to afford 5% of $3 million. And I think that it's important that everyone at this committee knows that we're at that point now where we need to commit to coming up with that 5%. And I know what happened with our last project. We were trying to figure out capital in the budgeting process. It was asked on numerous occasions, you know, when did we approve this? And on what committee and who decided that this is what we were going to do? Well, we're at that point now with this committee, because once it goes out for consultant selection, the consultant's getting hired to build the runway project, and they're going to go spend lots of money putting the design together. So really, the only thing that the Bureau of Aeronautics is asking from us is a verbal go-ahead. And I don't know if that could come from committee or from Tom Hoff. I think the county's already, you know, said that, you know, we want to have this runway rebuilt. And that was when the airport improvement plan was approved like a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. But from a budgeting standpoint, you know, that's where me as airport manager, I'd like to see some sort of direction from you guys as to if we can give the notice to proceed for the BOA to put the project out for consultant selection.
So should that be on the next agenda, a discussion of that?
Yeah, well, it's gonna get approved anyway.
Yeah.
It's already been approved, and it's just a matter of working into the budget. Is that correct?
That's what I thought, so, okay. You've gotten the approval, so,
Yeah,
it's just like you said, it's just gotta be worked on the budget.
Do they need to see it in the minutes?
you know what, probably, Tom, do you think that would be appropriate if,
What's the deadline to do that?
I don't think there is a deadline. And you read the email, I'm sure, as much as I did.
Then let's put it on next month's agenda and do something more formal.
It's fine with me.
Can you do that, Lynn?
I don't think it's gonna set us back to speak up as far as the project. I mean, there's a
We're talking
reason,
about the runway itself.
Runway
On
funding.
the runway.
yeah, there's a reason why they try to put these things out 3 years in advance. So really, the project's not gonna happen until probably spring of 2024. But we have to have committed the money in 2023 to do it.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do you have anything under C, entitlements received, spent, the remaining?
As the same conversation discussion, I always put it in my report because it's just requested in there. Seems to work. We haven't had to pay for our 5% yet of our project that we're just wrapping up. We might not see that bill for a long time. It takes quite a while for the DOA to get their stuff together. And then when we did get a bill here just recently, and then they called me to say, don't pay it because it's wrong. So I had to call Mike Keith and tell him not to pay the bill. But everything that we've done up to this point in time is budgeted for in capital.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions for Derek?
15 minutes.
We'll move forward now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek. Letter 8, Highway Commissioners report.
Well, first we got the funds balance report. Nothing really to report on that. Nothing earth shattering. We do have one good highlight is at the very bottom. You'll see incidental labor is the last fund on there. And we've recovered more than we've expended for those are fringe benefits, which is good at this time of the year. So nothing else really on that. Going into the commissioner's report, just a couple of, well, first of all, does anyone have any questions on the report? Okay, just a couple of updates. You'll see on the first paragraph talk about a culvert on Glover Lake. This has become a little contentious. We had a culvert that was failed. It's been failing for many, many years. We've had beaver problems for, gosh, I don't know, 10, 12 years at this place. We've had, trappers in there. So last fall, when we were fooling around with it again, we noticed that the culvert pipe was just totally shot, just gone. So we went through the winter, and so we replaced it. I think it was June 14th. Oh, this is great. Computer went down. Anyway, June 14th, we replaced it, and we set a benchmark in the roadway, put a nail in the road, and the culvert was 7 feet 6 inches below the roadway existing. We replaced it with same diameter, same everything, same elevations. I got a phone call yesterday from a gentleman saying we lowered the lake several feet. Well, the culvert that was in there, the 15-inch culvert, it was completely underwater. It's not supposed to be underwater. The lake was artificially high. Other people on the lake had called me complaining about the height. This gentleman called me complaining about the low lake level now. So, and then I got another call today from another lady called me, and she had the same concerns. And I kind of tried to explain everything to him, what we did on the elevations, and we are in a drought. You don't have to go very far up and down B on my ride there to see every pothole and every pond. Even the Chippewa flowage is low. So we got two things going on here. So the first gentleman also called the chairman, and chairman said we'd look into it. I did make contact with the DNR today, and I spoke with the water specialist, explained what we had done and what was occurring. And she said, you did everything right. I mean, you've got an established benchmark, you've got everything documented, you went with the same diameter pipe, same elevations. It's not your fault that you had a plug culvert in there. This is how it is supposed to be, So you may hear something, both myself and Ron, I believe, have to get back with the gentleman or one, I don't know. Maybe the chairman would like to do it, probably a good job. But that's where we're at with the Glover Lake, in case anyone were to hear anything from it. Also, we had, since the report, we had another vacancy come up. We have a summer seasonal employee just quit showing up for work. So we've got that vacancy, and we also still have the vacancy for the flagger position. So it's not real good right now as far as where we're sitting at highway with help, because basically means we have to take people out of our regular workforce, which we're already bare bones. So, but it's the same thing everyone in this community is crying about. No one wants to work, can't get people to work. So I don't know what we do. I mean, I seriously don't know what we do at this point, but we literally have had to park our mowers. So, something has to give, you guys. And Ron knows this, and I think Tom might know this. I had a week off of work with panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I missed a whole entire week of work. The job is killing me when it comes to things like this. And I'm not going to worry about it anymore. It's not worth my health.
Not worth your health.
It's not worth my health to worry about this. We can't get people to work for us. We can't, no monies, no nothing. I'm not even going to deal with it anymore. I'll just do what I have to do.
Do what you can do.
Yeah. And also, no good news on the update I don't have any update on the Critter River Bridge. So that was let on March 9th, awarded for bid to Larson Construction out of Chippewa Falls. And they are under no obligation to tell us when they're doing it. You know, they got awarded the bid, they can do the bid, they can do the bridge, and they could have done it in June, they could do it in July, they could do it in August, September. It's just gotta be done this year. So I've heard just rumors that they're talking about sometime in August. But going back to that, they only have to give like a certain week notice to even have a pre-construction conference. So they could have in their schedule and already know it's gonna be August 21st. They don't have to even notify us till like, say, August 7th, to schedule a meeting. So as soon as I do hear something, I'll let everyone know. But I really don't have anything else to update on that.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, questions for Gary or anything? If not, we'll go on.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I got
Yes.
this. Will there be a reroute of Highway E then on doing that bridge and how long?
There's no detour scheduled for that.
Just one lane at a time?
No, there's no, it's a total road closure.
That's what I meant. So how long will it be closed? Any idea?
Probably a couple months, I think.
Months,
Yeah. Well, it's a major bridge.
right?
Yeah.
So a thoroughfare or something?
Thoroughfare can be used by locals. It's just, we can't. I mean, everyone knows they're gonna use thoroughfare road. I
Right.
mean, anyone that lives out there is either gonna
But
go
that's not a real
around.
good road for,
No, but I mean, if they had to go from here to this side of the bridge, they're gonna use thoroughfare. People that live on this side of the bridge, the south, they're gonna go out and come out Midway. These people will go up here. Yeah. But if you're up here and you have to go to Coudray, you're gonna wanna, well, they can go, yeah, there's ways around. But most locals are gonna use thoroughfare.
Yeah.
But we just can't use that as an official route. The official detour routes can be quite lengthy. When I said there's no detour route, I'm sorry, there's no temporary bridge. There is gonna be a signed detour route,
Got it.
but it's gonna be a long
big
route.
deal, yeah.
Thank you. Letter C, ATV, UTV route
Okay,
process.
so, yeah, you guys are all familiar with our process. We have a dual approval process whereby, say we don't accept citizen requests, but if a club, say Sawyer County ATV Snowmobile Trail Alliance makes a request, it goes before the municipality with where that trail lies in the county highway, and then it comes before the Public Works Committee. I received notice that one township is not going to consider any more routes where the speed limit's 35 miles or greater on county highways. So this is where I'm going to throw it back in the committee because it is policy. What do you guys want? How are we going to handle this? How do we go forward knowing that there's, and this came to light because there's been a request to have County Road B opened up from Double C to Trail 3 to the east to Trail 3. It's like 3.7 miles, okay? It's already opened, Double C is, all the way from Flowage Road up to B. And at that point, that's where the trail ends. Okay? So the request is to go around the corner, continue on B to Trail 3. The town will not take action on it. So we have 3 references in our resolution and 1 reference in our letter of understanding where we talk about the municipality.
Well,
So, and we
remind me-
currently do not have our own resolution or ordinance for ATV, UTV trails on the county system.
So remind me what those documents have to say.
It just says that we will enter into an agreement with recognized clubs and that we will, that we don't currently have a ATV, UTV route ordinance, and that we would allow requests that are contingent upon approval from municipalities through which the route travels. So they have to adopt into their system.
So the municipality has to approve it before we can move forward.
Correct. Correct. And the municipality in question said they're not going to
So
take action.
aren't our hands tied in a sense, according to that policy?
Presently, so the question is, do we want to change the policy? If we want to change the policy, how do we want to do that? And I think we have to be pretty careful doing that, but it looks like we need to look at it.
So next month, just discuss more or just now or what?
Well, we should probably do a little
Kind of have
research.
to decide how we want to proceed. That's why I brought it before the committee. I sent an email to both Tom and Ron, explaining this and, thoughts. What do we want to do? How do we want to address this?
Mr. Schuman.
Has legal counsel looked at this at all yet, Tom? Or aware of this?
She's on the line if you want to hear what she has to say.
I am.
Yeah, I would like to hear your opinion on this, Rebecca.
Okay, sure. Couple things from an overview standpoint. As Gary mentioned, there is the MOU and the letter of understanding that are, set forth the context of the agreements that the county has with respect to ATV, UTV routes. It's not an ordinance. However, Chapter 23 of the statutes does not require the county to have an ordinance. And that's an important point when we're debating what is and what is not an ordinance. The county can have regulations pursuant to the statute, so long as they are in strict conformity with the statute and everything that the county has done thus far, in the MOU and its actions, if you will, have always been in, or at least my understanding is it's been in strict conformity with the state statute. Now, with respect to local municipal approval of the routes, I understand that has been the practice for the county. And this is where we get into a point of some legal disagreement because there's some organizations that say Section 2333 of the statutes absolutely requires underlying municipal approval of an ATV, UTV route. And then there is a different interpretation that is an underlying municipality has to have an ordinance in order to make that approval. And even if it is along a state or county highway. Where the issue becomes more clouded is if it is a county highway and a town is either refusing to approve or will not act to approve. The question becomes whether county jurisdiction over its county highways trumps any town authority to approve that line. So if that's the situation that the county is in currently with this route, before I can give you an answer to say, yes, move ahead, you don't need the town's approval, I would want to have more facts because that is a differing legal opinion than some have of underlying, again, town or municipal approval of those routes.
Thank you. Zilmer.
Linda Zilmer, a few months ago, I brought before this committee the recently adopted Washburn County policy plan and ordinance for ATV, UTV road routes. And if this is going to be opened up, I guess I would like to have Washburn County's example looked at by this committee, and if it's okay to also have legal counsel look at that, because I thought that was a great model and it clarified some of the law enforcement issues.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that document, Tom?
I believe so.
We're not going to resolve it tonight, obviously, but why don't we put it on the agenda for next month? Give us a little time to check what some of the other counties do. Let Rebecca check into see if we can trump, if we want to trump what the township does or not. At least that way we'll know where we stand. Are you folks here for something regarding that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comments or anything?
No, Harold Freeland Resort. The only comment on the town in question, the chairman made that it was a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, that if it was above 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, it was the county's jurisdiction. That's the way I read it in the minutes.
Correct. She just stated it from the Tim Davison, Hunter Township, Sawyer County Snowmobile Alliance. She just stated that she had conferred with the WTA attorney on the matter, and at great length and discussion with the attorney, that's what they came up with.
Thank you. Yes.
When we approve trails, don't we put them 35 miles an hour?
Not trails.
No, they're talking about the statutory speed limit of the highway. They're not talking about the speed that the ATV, UTVs are permitted at.
I see.
They're saying any highway that has a statutory speed limit of
5 or more.
greater than 35, because there's that other law that allows them without our blessing to do it from 35 and lower, like they did in the city of Hayward on County Road B. No, we didn't approve that route.
Gary, when we opened up K and E, remember with those ATV routes, was that a 35 mile per hour speed limit?
Oh, no, they're all over, including in this specific township.
Right.
They're all over the county. There's very few routes that are on roads that are 35 or less that we've approved.
Right.
You know, so that's where the kind of the thing is, but their statement is that going forward, they're not going to address this any longer. You know what I'm saying? So they did some in the past. This municipality did some in the past, but going forward, they're not going to address it. Isn't that correct?
Right.
That's what I got from her and speaking with the chairman.
They don't want
chairperson.
their hands involved. That's
Right.
If it's over 35.
Right.
Well, I would like to explore the jurisdiction of a county highway through a municipality. I mean, I think Rebecca brings up a valid point there, and I'd like her to look further into that. I really would, because we learned some things when we opened up K and E, right? You were very concerned that someone would come up hard on an ATV going too slow or something. We haven't seen any of that.
No.
Nor on B, right? And
Well, we just have small segments of people.
right. But knock on wood, we've never really seen a lot of major mishaps.
Well, yeah, and that's how this whole thing came up again, because, you know, I had always been opposed to having this route open, well, until I actually have seen, and I've seen several instances since that time I saw it. They're illegally running on our highways, but they're blended right in, you guys. You can't tell the difference between a car and a UTV. I mean, they're coming right up Highway B near the Rod and Rifle Club. I didn't realize till I got probably past the second UTV. You know, they're traveling right with traffic, like a dune buggy. You know, these things they're big too.
But they're doing it on state roads too.
No, they can't do it on state roads. can they?
But they are.
I mean, it's illegal.
It's illegal on B where they were at, though.
But it's illegal on state roads.
Some states.
No, it's not.
Some are open.
Some are open with 35 or less.
Oh, where it's 35.
Yeah, and the
correct.
city of Hayward is open.
Okay. But I
Yeah,
mean,
70, 2770 to be.
70 through winter, and
It
It's
was,
all-
if it was 35,
there's
The
everything's
village.
55 or 45.
but if it was lowered to 35, which is what they're trying to get now, you could open that without,
Winter, people just drive like that's
Well,
their cars.
no, it is, I don't understand how, personally, I don't understand how coming past my driveway, I mean, the fastest thing coming down there besides a logging truck going downhill is an ATV, UTV, mostly UTV, a big UTV.
Yes. Oh, I
And a
saw
big
one.
batch of UTVs too.
Okay, let's get back on track.
I'm sorry.
Huge.
Pardon?
Rebecca's hand is up.
Rebecca, go ahead.
Question on the town approval. Gary, is the town saying that if it's over 35 miles an hour, they don't have to approve, or they don't have jurisdiction to approve? That's what their advice from WTA.
okay, I'm gonna let these guys in the audience, they were actually at the board meeting, answer that. I wasn't there, Rebecca. I spoke with her yesterday on the phone, and she just says, we're done with anything over 35. That's all she.
Okay, because I guess my question then is if that is if that's the interpretation, if they're saying they have no authority over anything over 35, would they be construed as approving or not approving or taking no action? Because I think that becomes an interesting question. I've actually had discussions with, I don't know which attorney at WTA advised the town, but we've had discussions with WTA on this issue before, so we can pick this up, offline. And Gary, I can get in contact with you, or we can have more discussions about this.
Okay. Well, we just put it on the agenda then for next month. And
Mr. Freeland, do you have any comment?
No, I just, thank you. I just in the read more stated, we do not have authority on roads with the speed limit greater than 35 miles an hour. Per the WTA attorney, it is up to the county to turn a county road into an ATV.
So there are some.
Those are just the minutes.
Okay, but that does clear things up for me. Probably for Rebecca also.
Mr. Rotek, you have anything?
No, sir.
All right, so we'll put it on the agenda for next month. We'll see if we can patch it. All right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. Number 9, maintenance department report. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. Great job as always.
Any questions on my report at all?
Just only the one question I have is, any idea when that, was it a compressor that blew when you were starting it up?
Well, what happened is, I tell you, we've been having some issues with the new jail air conditioning. Obviously, temperatures have been mild enough, and it actually has been working. We've got 2 stages working out of the 4 stages. But once they thought they had everything done, fired it up, we ran it full. We actually ran, not that it matters, but we ran heat at the same time so that we could get the unit running maximum. And one of the compressors failed in the startup, so now we're waiting on. They're going to actually change out 2 compressors, 2 of the 4. So right now the jail does have 2 of the stages running, and it's been doing a good job because we did find. We went through, found a fire damper that was closed, that even with all the alarms and everything, it never said that the fire damper, they'd just been inspected like 5 weeks before for the annual inspection. So we got airflow going better in the jail, and so the air conditioner is working pretty well on 2 stages, but it'll probably be, it's just a delay in getting equipment.
When do you plan to have those other 2 compressors that went down running?
They've been on order, so it's just, right now, getting hands on equipment right now.
Computer chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Everything
We won't
really,
see it this year.
everything's really delayed right now on shipping times, but they have been orders in place, so, and it will all be warranty, obviously, so at least it's no budget hit at all.
Where's the animal control?
That is down by the, it's technically the dog pound, but it's by the city garage.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on their same lot.
Yes.
I would just like to take the opportunity to commend Tim and his staff. During the COVID outbreak in May, it was phenomenal what they did, and Derek, our maintenance and custodial attendant there, did a phenomenal job, stepped right up and helped. Tim was great helping, and with the air conditioning, he's been on top of it. A few glitches here or there, I can tell you it's made a big difference in the jail, especially with the heat this summer. The temperament with the inmates and the conditions for the staff, and when the inmates are restless and having issues, as Mark knows, it has additional effect on the staff. That is not a fun place to be most days, and when it's hot, it's worse.
Thank you. I believe it comes some good leadership coming all the way down.
True.
Okay. Anything else, Bill? Were you at the meeting today?
What's that?
Were you at the meeting
Yep.
today?
Yep. Well.
Number 10, courthouse remodel update.
All right. Yes, we did have a meeting today. I'll pass out. They just had the handouts. I do have the electronic version. I'll put it up on the screen here.
Yes.
So this is already old news that we talked about the documents that are in here and there is some things around 12 plans in there. Yeah, we're on another version here. So first of all, in your agenda packets is the minutes from a meeting from June 23rd. And so this is what you'll see. We're having these meetings every 2 weeks and it gets documented on what happens on each of those meetings. So as you review your packets, you'll see the minutes to these meetings and how they progress. And we'll also talk about it in this meeting as well, the progress that we are making. And I think we made some significant progress today. We had the conceptual ideas down on how the layout should be, and we've talked a lot about that. And today we talked about a lot of the finer points of the design. And let me just take a minute to see if I can get it up here on the screen. You're not going to be able to see this too clearly, but the point being, this is kind of an overview of the new construction. Let's see if that's the page I want there. Let's start with this one. I'm on page 3 of the packet. And on this, the jail is at the top. To give you some perspective, the green in this photo is the new construction. So the big green block is the new courtroom that's built between the jail and the existing courtroom. And that big block in yellow is the existing courtroom. So the yellow areas are areas that need to be remodeled or will be remodeled, could be remodeled. Specifically, as you look up in the jail section, the routes that inmates will take to get from the jail into the courtrooms. They'll no longer be traversing over the street. They'll be taking a secure hallway either into that first courtroom or around on the left-hand side along secure hallway into the existing courtroom. So those are some of the things that we have talked about before in the general design. Today we talked a lot more about specifics, specifically in the courtroom, the position of the bench and the height of the court reporter and the doors into the chambers and a lot of different specifics on the space to get the space nailed down so that they can do the schematic drawings and make cost estimates off of that then. So there was kind of 2 discussions going on, one with the judge and staff as far as the layout of their specific areas, and also with the sheriff and his staff with regard to the security and the movement and the flow of traffic, not only for the public and securing that, the inmates, securing that, and securing judge staff and whatnot. So, Judge, do you have any specific? Judge, I just made you a judge.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Sheriff, you want to just kind of discuss what you talked about from your perspective?
I think you summarized it well there. Talked about, we have to bring the secure part of the jail in with the flow and setting up in between there, the yellow spots coming down out of the booking room into holding cells there, going from the secure side of the jail to the court facilities and making them accessible both sides, because everything north or to the west there of the current or what's on the map on top, being the line is going to go from the secure portion of the jail to non-secure, which would be the courthouse as well.
So where are they coming out of the gym?
In the current booking room?
No, on the yellow here.
Yeah, but there's going to be a hallway put in that's going to attach to the back side of the current booking room and come right down where the SWAT garage is, along that outside wall. It can come right down into the new hallway on the end, so it's going to flow very well. It's going to be a short path of inmate and staff travel right into the back side, which will be a secure side of both courtrooms with added holding cells too, or additionally. So it should function much more feasibly and economically, especially focusing on trying to minimize staffing issues and being able to utilize our staff in other areas of need.
Thank you.
Tom, or Sheriff, have we talked about like the expansion of criminal justice and justice point in their offices?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, and a drug court and
Yep.
how about the VA offices?
Yep.
Okay.
With, I get a question. With current staff, do you have enough staff, even though it's getting remodeled, to be able to proceed with the prisoners? I mean, you're moving the prisoners presently. Do you see any increase in staff to do this?
We're hoping not. The judge has indicated that with the second courtroom, while one court is doing criminal, the other is going to be doing civil cases. So that, you know, with the current staff and with the increased efficiency, because we're going to have our 3 court services deputies placed in the new facility part. So their offices are going to be in there. So we don't have the loss of their foot travel and everything else. So the efficiency that way, our intent is to utilize what we have and be able to expand the added court and with the expanded civil side of it. And the judge indicates that seldom, if ever, are both courts going to have a criminal trial on at the same time. Now that potentially could happen. You know, at this point, we're just going to proceed with that with part-time staff to the best of our ability and minimize costs that way. But we're hoping that we're able to proceed forward with the current staff.
Thank you. So,
Okay, so, you know, the court space is kind of taking care of itself. You know, there's been a lot of discussion, not only with the judge and his staff, but the district court administrator, Chris Channing, has been in all of our meetings and has advised the architect and the construction manager on, you know, what is allowable and what is not only by the law, but, you know, sometimes there's exceptions, like our courtrooms are slightly smaller than what is in Chapter 68 of the Supreme Court rules, but he says that's fine, you know, some courtrooms are. So he's there to help advise, you know, what's going to happen and what isn't. So we do have some limited space. ADA compliance is another issue. They're trying to work out, you know, either ramping or a lift to make at least one courtroom ADA compliant if there is a judge or staff that needs, you know, to get up on those ramps. And so the current plan is to, and they're trying to figure out whether it's better to have a ramp, which takes up more real estate, versus a lift, which takes up less real estate, but might be more expensive to maintain in the long run. So it's a trade-off. Pardon me?
Ramp doesn't break down.
Right. So, you know, those are some of the things that are being contemplated for one of the courtrooms. So that kind of takes care of those court areas. We talked about, you know, what's happening in the wing, you know, this wing right here behind me, where the clerk of courts is. You know, originally when we went through and analyzed space needs and, you know, what's happening in all these areas with the assembly room here, we have trouble sometimes with the people in the hall. So we had some different things that we could do in the clerk of courts area to bring those people out of the hall and more into the office in a secure space. We talked about the DA, but since we've talked to the DA the first time around, we've added some staff. We rearranged their work area. We sliced into child support for an office for an ADA. So I think they're pretty much set up in the district attorney's office. And that back corner is child support. There's 2 offices and a larger room back there, as well as another area where they meet clients there. Child support has been working from home, and that's been working well. They can continue to work from home. But we could use that smaller space for them, for their file cabinets, and when they're in the office, that 2 office space with the rooms could be used for the CJCC activity, which they needed 2 offices and meeting space. It could be veteran staff, 2 offices and space, or we could utilize this room and make this into offices for the veteran services with meeting space and 2 offices here. By doing that, it takes away this conference room, but the green space, the smaller block, this would be the new boardroom, which, the board would be permanently placed in the upper part of that room. The lower part would be, for the public, and that could also be used as a conference room. And we talked about, expanding this space, possibly, with a partition or something that could be used, to make that maybe 2 conference areas. We would also have access to the jury room here that would be off the main hall, which would have seating, about the same seating as this has. Have seating for 14, and that could be used by the public when there's not a jury trial. So we would have additional conference space. That would be nice space, for meetings like this. Actually, the committee meetings could happen up in the boardroom, but we would have at least 2 to 3 other spaces for conference rooms. So this area down here, this is the area behind me where the clerk of courts is. We did have some remodeling there in the small courtroom and some remodeling there, and that was in the budget. But we're talking about, if we do this remodeling, we could do it a couple of different ways. We could do it as an alternate bid. Part of my concern is, with the increased costs in construction and some of the things we're, thinking of, we kind of creep up on scope a little bit. If we don't have enough money to do everything we need to do, and we're trying to stay in that $6 million construction budget, is not do this remodel if it means, working this space to accommodate the veteran services. I think that's probably a higher priority from what we're hearing from the board and in this committee, to make that accommodation for the veteran services, to get out of that old building. And there's advantages to getting out of that old building. Tim has been looking at what it takes to rehabilitate that. But as we talk to the construction people, I think it's a better idea if we can accommodate it to get them out of that building into better space. It also helps improve the traffic then. It would give us additional parking back here. And we also need, we also need space to get into the Sally Port for, what vehicle is that? Or the
Sally Port for inmates?
No, well, what vehicle do you have that's going to be traversing into that garage area?
Squads and transport van.
Okay. So there is going to be traffic, through there. So that additional parking is going to be advantageous, as well as snow removal, which Tim brought up today. Since we're vacating that street and we need somewhere to put the snow that comes off of that street for parking. So that'd be our responsibility now, and we could shove it back into our area back behind there. So there's some advantages in that. So that's kind of where we left it today. Gary Elliott wasn't here today. He had a different appointment. So we're working through those issues with him upon his return. But those are the thoughts that we had today. So we're really ironing out all of the details, but we do need to kind of come to some conclusion about, if we're going to keep that veterans building or not, and if not, how are we going to accommodate those other staff? So that's the point where we're at today. And
yeah, my question is right along in the veterans building. So if they come in the courthouse, we're thinking because of the cost of rehabilitating, just knocking it down?
Yes.
Is that what the funds? that's totally news to me. I had no idea that we were thinking that now.
Yeah, we had talked about that in prior meetings, but
In here? Hello? Oh,
you know, so that's the options. Tim, any other comments on that? And we do have Andrew on the line too, if you've got specific questions, construction wise from Andrew. Andrew is from Myron Construction.
I think you summarized it well. I think, and I think the general consensus is that if we were going to do that, now would be the time. And I think, you know, it's a really old building. We've got some concerns in there. You know, and I do think as we, you know, as things were getting ironed out today, I think there are some very viable options that work out really well for veteran services as well.
that was a really good picture.
Yeah, and we've met with Gary in our administration committee from the VA office, Mr. Howie,
Mhm.
and he did explain to us what he thought they needed, and that building was not it. It's inaccessible for wheelchairs, and there's other.
Oh, yeah, I
problems
understand that, you know, the move.
there. And then we asked him where he thought he would like to be located or his veterans, and
Mhm.
kind of came to this area, so.
But, oh, I understand the move there. I mean, my concern is the building itself, that it can't be used for anything else, as far as the county is, you know, if it's
Well,
cost effective or not.
technically, if you look long-term,
Mhm.
leaving the Veterans Services building where it is now, it cost us one jail pod in the new jail construction. So it costs as much money to build around the Veterans Service building in the 06 jail as it would have been to complete the pod at that point. And so the next future jail expansion would be to complete the pod, so it would be in that. Because if you remember, right now, if you look at a drawing of the jail, we have half the pod, and so the other half of the pod is sitting on that piece of land now. So I think for future expansion and everything, I think it does make sense to.
So we're putting all these programs together, so we don't have to expand.
Oh, that's right. You know, that is true. We just.
We better not expand that shit.
I don't think I want to be on board.
I just meant just in case.
Yeah. But
Andrew, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you have any comments regarding what Mr. Huff went over?
No, I think he gave a pretty good overview. I thought it was a pretty collaborative meeting this morning and working through details on the plans. Ventures will go back and clean them up, and looking forward to seeing the updates in 2 weeks. After that, it'll kick off our costing period, and then by mid-August, we will have our first schematic design costing done and ready to present. And at that time, kind of goes with the conversation as to whether we can fit the added scope in the budget, or if we need to look at alternate ways of bidding that out or handling at a later date.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question too, Andrew, is can we do all this and stay within budget? Because I know you're hired as an at-risk project manager. So that is my concern. And have we looked, Tom, at alternatives just in case it does come in over budget?
Well, and that's what we were speaking to, is that they would bid that as an alternate. And if it fits, then great. If not, you know, Tim and his crew can do the existing remodeling, you know, whether it's this room, the stuff that was happening in the clerk of courts. We've also got to do a little bit of work in the probate office. So those things could be done internally. You know, if it didn't fit within the $6 million construction budget.
But even though they can do it internally, there's still costs and materials.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, there's still cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thought being that it would be designed right away and accounted for And then it's just an exercise to Tom's point of whether it comes in under budget on bid day. And then we have a discussion as to how it gets handled. But knowing that it is added scope, we thought it was a safe area to put it into the building because it's really a separate section and easy enough scope to break apart in a bid.
Thank you. Yes.
I guess my last question, Tim, does the county own any other buildings anywhere that we would possibly sell or something to bring in some more income to make all these changes here? Because I know at Health and Human Services, we're discussing Oasis and we're wondering whether that's sustainable or viable in the future. And then there's just thoughts of, well, we do that building if Oasis doesn't stay there. I mean, are these things that we're looking at or looking forward to?
I know we've had some conversations about the use of Oasis, for example. I mean, it opens it up. It is a county building, meets ADA requirements. It's, you know, if it wasn't a group home, do we use that as additional office spaces or a department or?
You know, that's, if I may, to me, that if that facility was vacated, you know, something that I wanted to get put into this here was some sort of a, you know, mental health, ADODA, you know, drug and alcohol type thing. So that was
certainly worth looking at. Yes.
You know, that's why I asked about the VA building. If it was not worth looking at continuing on it, then if that building didn't, then that'd be.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have one comment myself, Mr. Huff, is I apologize, I missed the meeting this morning, but I'll tell you what, if I'm gonna spend money on mechanical stuff or put a ramp in, it's hands down with the ramp in because mechanical stuff's gonna break. And it'll nickel and dime you.
Oh, yeah. First thing I thought of.
All right, go ahead.
Did you catch that, Andrew?
Yeah, and I didn't hear the exact context, but I tend to agree with the overall comment, especially when we look at ramps versus lifts in the courtrooms. I agree, ramps the way to go. That lift is going to be an ongoing maintenance item.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, a few other issues, not issues, but things that we're working on. Tim's been in contact with the utility company. We need to reroute utilities that are currently on 5th Street. Also working with the city with regard to the paperwork on the land swap with the California Avenue land and the 5th Street land. So we're working with the city attorney and our corp counsel to work through that. We've got a meeting scheduled with our financing person to start working out how we issue the debt when it's time to do that. Included in the packet is the schedule that Venture put together, and then there's a loose sheet of paper that Myron incorporated the construction piece in with the Venture timetable. So that's kind of where we're at right now with the complete construction schedule to be completed prior to when the judge takes office in August of 23. So we're still on schedule, and we're doing good so far. The schedule that's in your packet also has, the Public Works Committee meeting dates and the dates of our next meetings for design and costing. So we're trying to kind of coordinate that so that we can update this committee with the latest, greatest news as we keep rolling along. And then we'll keep getting these minutes to you on a timely basis. And then that's where we're at.
Tom, I don't know if you have a clue, but have they mentioned any idea to when California's going to be open?
I do not know.
The last I had heard is we were, they were hoping like, and now we're going to probably miss that. Last I had heard was mid-July. So, then we had some rain this week. So I know that kind of slowed some stuff down on there, but I know all the concrete works in. So should be laying down asphalt here not too long.
Thank you.
I have one other question. On page 13 of the other county boardroom. Did you cover that today, perhaps? And the reason I asked that is I do not like the county board with their back to the audience.
Yeah, that's not the way it would be. We talked about it being a U, just kind of like it is, so that there's sight lines for every person. You know, when they're in a straight line, there's no sight line for a lot of the people. So it'll be a more U-shaped kind of configuration. And then this, you know, is going to be a little bit different too, but we'll wait for the next rendition to incorporate that extra meeting space. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or concerns, especially concerns about the direction that's going? I mean, we're getting down to the point of it's going to be what it's going to be. So,
You know, I hate to praise you, Tom.
well, then don't,
But
because
you're doing a fine job.
don't. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
But you are. You are.
There's nothing else in letter A. We'll go to letter B. Review and approve Meyer construction contract, discussion, possible action. Now, there's two parts to this. And when the ad hoc committee received this, it got approved. We approved both at the same time. Questions, concerns?
They've approved it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'll wait. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Meyer
Construction.
Construction.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Peters to approve. Mr. Huff.
Yeah, in discussion, the version that the ad hoc committee looked at, there's been some minor changes that Andrew and Rebecca had worked on, and I'll refer to them to kind of cover those things just to make sure that you're aware that it has some slight changes, which ad hoc was aware of, that it was going to be further reviewed, and it has been by both sides. And Rebecca, why don't you start with what's included in the red line?
Sure. The version that this committee has in front of it is the same version, or it should be the same version that the ad hoc committee had in front of it, because we didn't want to confuse the issue by putting a different version in front of Public Works that went in front of ad hoc. So just so you know, what ad hoc reviewed and approved is the same thing that you have in front of it, in front of you right now. And so what Andrew and I did this week was just go through a couple more terms that we still had some minor questions on, and we worked through those yesterday. We circulated an updated draft, and now we're in agreement on all the points. So the final version that you will see that goes to county board, how it's going to differ from the version you have in front of you right now. There's going to be some typographical changes regarding some of the indemnification provisions. Those are always much discussed because of the risk shifting. So Andrew and I had a good discussion on how the indemnification provision was modified to the extent is required by state law, and also obviously giving the county the greatest protection possible. And then, excuse me, there was a few number changes just to, for example, changing a 5 days to a 14 days for notice provisions, just to comply with what Myron's operations are. So in summary, county and Myron, from the legal perspective, we're in agreement on all points. And this can, I'm very comfortable with the draft that you have in front of you, and then the draft that's going to go before the board. And I'll let Andrew chime in as well if you have any additions or comments.
Nothing of real material to add. I'll just say that, yeah, we are both in agreement on the contract and appreciate the county and Rebecca's willingness to work through the comments. I think they were well done and honestly pretty minor ones to work through for the type of project that it is. So I think we're in a good spot.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes.
I do have a question. I noted as I was going through that there were bold and non-bolded red line changes, both deletions and insertions. Do those have any significance of where they came from?
No. What you see in the red line is a variation from the form AIA contract. So the way that the AIA software works is it has its standard terms and conditions. And then when a party deviates from those standard terms, that's what you see in the red line version. So, so for example, you've got paragraph 2.2.1 on the screen right now. What is struck out is what is in the standard AIA contract. What is underscored is what has been added to the county Myron contract. There is no, but there's no differentiation. If something is bold, it doesn't have a different meaning in terms of what type of revision that is. So I don't know if you have a specific example of a section that you're looking to look at that.
I was just searching for one right now, but I just noted that there were certain items that looked like they were bolded, and whether or not that was an earlier discussion or a later discussion, I just had a question on that. It's not, I think you've answered it already, so.
Okay.
Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Andrew.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Letter C, land swap in California Avenue. Is there any more than that?
Nothing else than what we already discussed.
Forward, number 11, potential use of ARPA funds.
So we're talking about this in each committee. We talked about the overall concept in the county board meeting, last county board meeting, the American Rescue Plan Act, the allocation of funds allocated to Sawyer County, the 3.2 million of which we have half of that currently in the bank. Just reviewing with each committee that money is out there. We do need to find eligible expenditures for those funds. And we talked about those general categories at county board. We've asked staff, to keep an eye out in their professional organizations, the chatter that goes on, in each of those areas, different ideas, and bringing those forward. So we're trying to kind of put together a list of things that people have thought of so that we can investigate the eligibility of that and make a plan for using those funds the most wisest way we can.
This has probably been already brought up, but just in case. As far as infrastructure, everybody in this room knows how this city, when it really rains, everything gets flooded everywhere. Is there any, maybe we can use any money for the, talking about?
I do. No. You wanted the short answer the last time, so. No, the only thing that we can spend money on infrastructure-wise is the water and sewer and broadband infrastructure. Stormwater, especially not our stormwaters.
So that's sanitary sewer.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, I believe so, but what we need to do is look at the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act, those things that are eligible, and those programs are eligible under this funding. So I take back my solid no and make it a wishy-washy no.
I like that one better.
All right.
Tom, is there any, excuse me, Chairman, is there any other money we can apply for or anything for grants?
Well, to do what?
Well, you talk about clean drinking water and infrastructure and I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but did you say we could put some money into Fifth Street as we move that water main, or is?
Potentially, yes. There's potentially other expenditures within that project that would qualify, such as those things that help social distancing or, those kinds of things may qualify. So those are things we're looking at as well. But I mean, we've got funding for that. So do you want to use funds for that or something else? Those are the decisions we'll have to make once we get further into the process.
I know you talked about not using this one-time funding for operations because then you can't support it in the future. So I understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need the most.
Yeah, we've got a pot of money we're trying to figure out how to spend, and then we've got the other side of the coin where we don't have enough money to do what we need to do.
Okay, Ms. Zimmer.
Thank you. I had two items that I brought up in other committees as far as ARPA funding opportunities. One would not cost the county very much money, but we have a number of municipal wells in the county, and I have twice before been unsuccessful in getting the Land, Water, and Forestry Committee to move forward with adopting a municipal wellhead ordinance. And I think if we want to help protect the public water supplies that our municipalities have, a county-wide ordinance would do that. So I'm going to try and bring that forward again. And the reason that I'm doing that is some of you who've been on the board longer may remember when I came and I had issues with zoning decisions that affected the Birchwood municipal well. The wellhead protection area falls into Edgewater, and now the village is looking at putting in a second municipal well, and we're going to have to protect that because the one we have is at risk. The second item I suggested to the Land, Water, Forestry Committee meeting, but it would also probably apply here, would be going and looking at developing a master plan for bicycles and pedestrians. In the past, when Mr. Saunders was involved in helping the town of Hayward get grants, there was an ad hoc committee formed, but it really didn't do anything beyond getting those grant applications approved. And I do think from both looking at planning for what are appropriate road routes versus maybe getting rid of some that are on unofficial maps right now, and not to pick on Gary because I raise the issue every year, but mowing a County Highway F comes later in the cycle. And we had bicyclists on what is supposed to be a bike route on F. Very close calls over the weekend, and when you have the tall grass, you can't see around the curves and you can't see past the bikers. And so there's just the public safety thing behind that might involve this committee. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I believe Jay said he was going to look into that issue we were talking about with the ordinance and
Okay.
during our meeting this morning.
Okay. Very good. Let's move on to number 12, cell tower. Fees, discussion, possible action. Do we need to go into closed session for this? Or?
I don't believe so. Or,
It is
yeah,
listed.
okay.
And Mr. Kinsley, that was my public comment. I don't know that there's a reason to go into closed session. So if there's anything that could be discussed in open session separately before you would be to go in, I would appreciate your comment.
Well, that's fine. I believe that we're going to discuss funds, and the funds need to be disclosed, communicated in closed session so we can negotiate that out. Is there anything else we need to know?
Rebecca, do you have any advice on that?
Sure. You have, what we're going to be talking about are there's 2 existing leases that the county is party to. The county has received offers from the tower companies to potentially renegotiate those leases. We have several offers or options that have been put out. And so the purpose of the closed session was to do a comparison of those different offers and what the realization would be for the county and the risks and benefits to each of those options for the county. So there's a few different points under those existing agreements that we would discuss. Now, if the committee certainly has the option of not going into closed session, the discussion can be had in open session. The material I had sent to be shared with the committee in closed session, Mr. Hoff can certainly put it up on the board, but then it would not be attorney-client privileged anymore because it would be obviously presented in open session.
What wishes of the committee? I believe we need to go to closed session.
I was going to say, I think we need to. We're discussing some things that, in order to keep it attorney-client privilege, we need to go closed session.
We'll be negotiating with this company on terms. So,
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, please.
Does that help you understand a little bit?
Just looking at last month's minute, it didn't become clear to me that there would be anything like competition between companies. So do I understand now that there are different companies with competing proposals? Or are you dealing with just one company in terms?
I'm not clear in my mind either. But I do want to hear what Rebecca has to say to us. So I want to do a closed session.
And so you could let me know when you go back into open session. Okay. I'll wait to do roll call.
So letter A is county cell tower closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute S 19.851E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public property, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public business. Make a motion by Mr. Helwig. Second by Mr. Peters, going to closed session. Roll call vote.
Mr. Kinsley.
Yes.
Mr. Hellwig.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Let the record indicate we have unanimous go into closed session. Thank you. For number 12, we're on letter B. County cell tower open session discussion and possible action. Mr. Helwig.
I make a motion that we leave the Hayward cell tower agreement alone, at least alone, and that we go into negotiations with the Radisson tower.
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Mr. Helwig to leave the Hayward towers negotiation alone and do a renegotiation with the Radisson towers, second by Mr. Peters. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I will report back on those negotiations for Radisson.
Those we get on the agenda, yes. Number 13, future agenda items. So under highway, we want to make sure we get the ATV and UTV routes looked into regarding whether the town's going to approve or not approve, what kind of jurisdiction do we want to have. We're going to continue to have the second courtroom on the agenda because there's going to be constantly things coming forward. So you know the ad hoc committee, last meeting they had, we're not going to meet again until something comes up that we need to discuss. So we left their next meeting to be announced because we don't need that. Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Correspondence, reports, conference meetings, and other matters. Hearing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.